Welcome back to Mystical Heart Tarot readings. This is another update on Summer Moon Utah Wells, as seen through the eyes of a stranger with the help of Spirit. Tonight I'm not doing tarot cards. I was asked in the comment section if I would do a psychological profile on Dad. They wanted me to use the cards. However, if you have watched my introduction video, I believe I put it in there that I hold a master's degree in mental health counseling and addictions. 10 plus years of that. I spent 17 years in psychiatric facilities working. 10 plus years of that was doing nothing but psychiatric evaluations. And I felt that we could benefit more from my perspective as a psychiatric evaluator than we could from the tarot cards. But I do want to say up front, this is my opinion from what has been presented to me in the videos that I watched. And it is only my opinion. Just as when I did evaluations when I was working, the diagnosis that I came up with for people that I evaluated was considered a provisional diagnosis, and if the person was admitted to the facility, the psychiatrist made the final diagnosis. So consider anything I come with as being provisional and strictly my opinion based off of videos, because I don't have him sitting here in front of me like I would if I was working at the facilities. So I looked at, there was an interview with him and Mom sitting outside the house. There was a brief interview, I'm trying to remember what it was about, where Mom and Dad were sitting at a table, and I mean it was a very short video, and I believe there might have been one other video I observed. And then of course there was the video with him shirtless, and I'll get into that. So I'm going to start by saying what I observed in these videos. He has a problem keeping eye contact. He's constantly looking around and does not maintain eye contact with the person he's speaking with. His affect is flat. That means, and what does a flat affect mean? That's a little difficult to describe to people that don't know anything about mental health. He doesn't present with a smile on his face, or I'm trying to think of how else to put it to you as far as what I'm seeing. His speech, and for my train lovers, there goes your train. His speech is monotone for the most part. There was different points in some videos where he crossed his arms in what I consider to be a defensive position, possibly hiding something. One comment was made by him And to quote him, "Awesome young lady, we just want her back." As he was making that statement, his head was shaking back and forth as if he was saying no. He also stated she loved everybody in the church. Again, as he was making that statement, his head was shaking back and forth, displaying no, as if to say no. Something that did not make sense that he said. Why would he believe somebody say he sold her for drugs if he knew the truth? It should be flipped around. That comment should have been flipped around. He should have said, he should not have made that comment. It makes it sound like he knew something. Because he had been accused of that before, that's why the comment was made about him. And then some more of the shaking his head in the no direction comments. She went down there. He was referring to the basement. She went down there and she was gone. He was shaking his head no as he was saying that. The basement door was unlocked, and we haven't seen her since. Again, he was shaking his head no. I've seen this happen in another case in Colorado, where the man made a short video pleading for his wife's safe return. And he would make all these comments, but in the process, he was constantly shaking his head back and forth as if to say no. I don't see any emotion whatsoever. Maybe some depression. Now we all know about generational curses, and I believe he is part of a generational curse, and I believe he passed it on to his oldest, who is now a registered SA or SO. I believe from observation there was his childhood was most likely a very rough childhood. And as I said, I don't have him here to sit down and talk to him and discuss it. So everything that I say in this video is strictly my opinion, based on my observations from the videos. and you're getting more from me than you would from the tarot deck. Do I believe he has a mental illness? Yes. You have to understand that there's two categories of mental illness. When you work in a psychiatric hospital, you have, when we do psychiatric evaluations, we have to do a primary diagnosis. If there's anything, there's 5 diagnoses. There's 5 things to look at. There's 5 things that we had to provide to the psychiatrist. One was our provisional mental health diagnosis on what was called Axis 1. On Axis 2 is any personality disorder. Personality disorders are separate and different from mental health. And I'll explain that in a minute. On Axis 3 would be any medical problems that a person may have. Axis 4 is what was going on in this person's life. What's taking place in this person's life? Is it financial issues? Is there problems in a relationship? Problems in a job? That sort of thing is what goes on Axis 4. Axis 5 determines whether you get admitted into a psychiatric hospital or not. And it's a number rated from 0 to 100. In order to be admitted into a psychiatric hospital, you had to be considered below a 50. Anything above a 50, you should be able to somewhat function within the community. So let me go back to the Axis 1 and the Axis 2. On Axis 1 is where you might hear about somebody that has bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and there's different types of schizophrenia. It's your mood disorders and your psychotic disorders. Axis 2 now, on the other hand, is your personality disorders. When you say somebody is narcissistic, it's considered an Axis 2. Now, in the framework of, let me dive in a little bit on the framework of what people's health insurance will cover. If you go and you are evaluated and you really don't have anything on Axis 1 other than maybe situational depression, but you have maybe borderline personality disorder traits, narcissistic traits, your insurance company's not going to pay for the Axis 2. Your insurance company's only going to cover Axis 1. I'm giving you a little bit of background in mental health and substance abuse and insurance companies. But as far as what I see with Dad. I do see a mood disorder. I don't see bipolar. I do not see bipolar in him. I'm not saying he's not. He could very well be. But from all the videos that I have observed, I do not see it. I do see, when I say mood disorder, I'm talking more on the depression side. Now, as far as having any psychosis, in his case, it could possibly be related to his use of alcohol and other substances. Both of those, both alcohol and other substances, whether they are legal or illicit, can cause psychosis. I don't really see in the videos I've watched the actual videos where he did interviews. The one where he was sitting with his wife outside their home. The one where they were sitting at a table. And then I believe there was one other one that I watched. And I believe these interviews were all done, may have been done through a news channel. There was no evidence of psychosis that I could see. We know he has an alcohol problem. He's admitted to that. We have all seen the picture at the prayer vigil, and he was wearing shorts. And the observation of his legs, I don't know. I can't say for absolute certain that he's using anything injectable, because typically people that are doing that do their best to hide it. And he wasn't hiding anything. He was wearing shorts. So he may have some sort of medical condition that created what we've seen in that picture. However, he was standing there with his arms crossed. I do remember that. In a defensive position. As far as, I think I've covered everything on what would be considered Axis 1. We all know he does alcohol and something else. What that something else is, I do not know. I did on the videos that the news channels did their interviews, I did take a good look at his eyes, because a giveaway that somebody's under the influence of something is their pupils. Their pupils will be dilated. And on that particular video, neither one of the parents had dilated pupils. That's not to say they wasn't using anything. But I did not see evidence of it. But we did see the evidence in that one video where he had sunglasses on and didn't have a shirt on. We just don't know what. So we know on Axis 1 we have alcohol use and we have substance abuse. And on top of that, I believe we have a mood disorder. And I'm saying more on the depressive side. And I believe that the substance abuse is, I think he's self-medicating. I think he's self-medicating. As far as a personality disorder, I was taught in college that you have to observe somebody for at least a year before you can give them a diagnosis of a personality disorder. So I will do it the way that I was taught. And he does have narcissistic traits. He does have narcissistic traits. But I don't think you all needed me to tell you that. I believe a lot of his mood disorder stems from his childhood. I believe a lot of his substance abuse self-medication stems from his childhood. And his childhood contained a family curse that he passed on. So in my opinion, he does not have any he's not displaying any psychosis. He was at one point religiously preoccupied, but that could be situational. That could be considered situational. And I'll reiterate this. Everything I've said as far as him is concerned is based solely on my opinion from having worked in mental health and addictions for 17 years. I worked closely with a minimum of 5 psychiatrists when I worked. So, yes, he has, at the very least, a mood disorder, substance abuse problems, narcissistic traits. I don't have an updated copy of the DSM-5. I don't know that the psychiatric field uses the term psychopath or sociopath anymore. I believe those are outdated terms. Antisocial personality disorder traits as well. Antisocial personality traits as well as narcissistic. I believe the American Psychiatric Association has changed psychopath or sociopath to antisocial personality disorder. Can't remember which one what it is. Like I said, I'm not up to date. I've been retired for a few years now, out of the field. Since I retired, they brought out the DSM-5, and if you don't know what the DSM is, that's the diagnostic manual that contains all of the diagnosis, and it defines each diagnosis in that book. It's a very thick book. It tells you, it explains to you, what is required in order to make a diagnosis. Each specific diagnosis. I hope I answered your questions, or I hope I completed this. If you have questions, more questions, feel free to either leave them in the comments section or shoot me an email, and I will gladly respond. As I said, I feel that using my experience was more appropriate than trying to do a psychological profile using the tarot deck. If you, like I said, if you have any questions or comments, and either leave them in the comments section or shoot me an email. My email address is in the description box underneath the video. I send much love and many blessings to all my subscribers and my viewers. But most of all, let's say a prayer for Summer Moon, Utah Wells. Bring summer home. As always, I'll see you back next time. Have a wonderful day.